Roll sound. Speed. Roll camera.
Reading.
Slate.
Scene 1, take 1. Mark.
And action. Hey everybody, how you doing? Here we are. It must be 2 o'clock Friday. We're back at Burnie's Applebox, and boy, have we got a show today. It is so awesome. A guy that I've known for a long time, I've worked with several times, somebody whose work I truly admire. The first time I saw his work, I was so moved by it because it made, for the first time that I had ever seen a city become like a living organ, a living being. The traffic in the streets were the arteries. There was a heart beating in there, and I was so blown away of seeing beautiful pictures of our great city, Los Angeles. And of course, that work was done by my guest today, good friend, Colin Rich. Colin, welcome.
Hey, Burnie. Good to be here.
Good to be here, buddy. Thank you so much for doing this. You know, Colin, you were somebody I asked probably a year and a half ago to come down here and just do an interview in my studio because I'm doing an education site, which is open now on Set University. And you are such a knowledgeable person. In fact, we may still do this. I would love to do a workshop with you sometime and show people what you do, because I know you have legions of fans around the world, and you do just such an awesome job.
That'd be cool, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds good. So, Colin, you know, it's funny working with you. First, here's the kind of backdoor way that I came into it. We became Facebook friends. I saw your work and certainly complimented you on that when I saw it, loved it. You called me for a job, and I think we worked on a project in downtown LA for one night doing something. There's been a few other misses that we've had trying to work together, but probably about 8 months ago, I was going through my Facebook albums, and in no particular reason, I just opened one album and I noticed this job was from about 5 years ago, and you were the AC on it. And I go, what? I worked with Colin back then. I didn't even know it. I didn't even know you, you know? And it was just, I thought it was just a real funny 360 that came around.
That was a trip. I totally remember that job. That was like one of the first ones I had once I moved back to LA. I was living in New York for about 10 years previous to that. And then when I came back out to LA, I found a job on like Craigslist. And I was working as a camera assistant out in New York. And I came out here, I'm like, oh, this is a job. Let's do this. And I remember meeting you on it. I'm trying to remember what it was for. It was for like some type of like dietary supplement, or I don't know what it was, like an infomercial or something.
There was something like that, and they were from the Washington D.C. I think is where the production company came from. Yeah.
I felt like it was that like cutting edge, like everybody shooting on a DSLR at the time.
Yes.
And it was just like, you know, all the looked the same, all very shallow depth of field. I totally remember that job. That was so funny, man.
Yeah. I remember
that was
walking
a trip.
into that stage, and he pulled out the DSLR, and this was, you know, a while back. You weren't used to seeing that at the time. I thought, are they really shooting this on that?
Yeah. We're just doing stills here. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But you know, we had some fun on that. I remember that shoot. Surprisingly, I remembered the shoot fairly well.
Yeah.
You know, you're somebody, I want to hear your background. I want to hear how you got in the business. I want to hear what brought you to time lapse in such a big way. Where did you grow up, Colin?
You know, I'm actually from LA. I'm born and raised. So I kind of, you know, I've had my whole experience kind of take place in LA. And then, you know, in high school, I'd make movies with my buddies. Like on the weekend, we'd you know, go out and we'd like either steal our parents' video cameras, or one of the schools I was at, it actually had a video department, which is pretty cool. So we kind of had a lot of hands-on experience. But I loved making films. These little shorts are so like ridiculous that we were making. But I ended up putting together a reel, and then I applied and ended up at NYU at Tisch School of Arts. And I was there in New York for like, it was awesome, man. It was a great spot. I kind of focused on directing and cinematography. And upon graduating, I first worked and kind of cut my teeth at. Initially, it was Law and Order. I had an internship through the camera department, and that was an awesome experience. You know, a lot of on-set experience. They're like a family out there. You know, everybody knew each other because they'd been working, you know, together for like 30 years or something.
Right. That was in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. So that internship kind of turned into a job just for a little while. I was working with the camera department, and it was kind of in this interesting period of time where people are kind of debating whether or not they should start shooting digital. So I was at that point where, you know, they started with, you know, 35, then it's Super 35, and then it's 16 millimeter. And then Panavision brought out the Genesis. And I remember being called in to do tests at Chelsea Piers where they had like the D21, which was Arri's first foray into the digital world.
Sure.
These huge like box cameras that were like just shooting HD, but I mean, that's the best that they could do at the time.
Yeah.
But they were competing, you know, with 16 millimeter, Super 16 at the time. And it was just like a very interesting time. And at that point, I ended up getting a job over at Panavision in New York.
Okay.
And that's what I feel like I really kind of learned the ropes when it came down to the technical gear. Working as a prep tech there, your job is to basically meet with camera assistants, sometimes, you know, cinematographers, camera operators who are coming in here to prep all the gear for their shoot. And sometimes it would be, you know, oh, we're going to prep you know, a show that's going to be out for like 4 months shooting. We have a total of like 10 camera bodies on this thing. And you know, your job is to just, you know, hustle, but also just to put the whole thing together. And I kind of learned much more of a hands-on experience than I'd say that you get like in film school when it comes down to really knowing the actual professional gear that's on set.
Sure.
And from there, I was prepping a job for a film called Morning Glory, and Alvin Kushler was the cinematographer on that, and Stanley Fernandez, the first AC in New York, was also prepping that job as well. And I knew them through prepping other jobs out in New York. Basically, at the time, and this is it's so weird. I was shooting a lot of time lapse, like in my basement in Brooklyn. I had this rinky-dink apartment out there, and like it was in Park Slope, and I would just set up these like weird, like I'd have like flowers blooming, and I'd set up, you know, a time lapse camera with it was my old 20D. It was like my first digital camera that I had. And I remember, like, you know, on the side, I was shooting this stuff. And at the time, my computer was like a MacBook. And I remember loading the footage onto it afterwards and making these image sequences with it. I'm like, every time I run it, like the computer crashes. I'm like, I feel like I'm onto something here, you know?
Yeah.
So I remember.
You must be doing something right.
Yes, you're heading the right direction at that point. If like you're kind of failing, but it looks cool, you're definitely heading the right direction. Yeah. I ended up, they had a time-lapse sequence that was going to be played in this film. And I remember them kind of debating it. They're like, oh, we'll have, you know, we'll do this one way. And you know, I was kind of like, it was kind of one of those moments where it's like, you have to like step over the line. Like you could either just completely screw it up or you could take advantage of the moment. And I remember going up to him. I went to Alvin and I said, hey, like it sounds cool, like we were suggesting, but like, I think it would work better this way. And he's just the nicest guy ever, honestly. He was just like, he kind of looked at me, and I remember the AC was kind of looking at me like, dude, you better have something good to say or else, like, you know, that's that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, maybe for the scene, you could have like a body double for it and drag the shutter. And then you could have somebody who's kind of, you know, the idea in this particular scene was like the main character was packing up her apartment and she was going to be leaving New Jersey to move into the city. So they had kind of like the sentimental points of, you there, Burnie? I think
I'm
I just,
here. Did you
okay.
lose me? You clipped for a minute.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. You okay?
I'm back. Okay, I'll just keep going. I think my computer went to start. So they had okay, so the character had these moments where she had to kind of the camera just to kind of have these like reflecting moments where she'd be holding up things like.
Yeah, it looks like we're having some trouble on your end, Colin, a little bit. It's freezing up a bit, buddy. We're going to see if we can get Colin back, but let me just tell you, this has been amazing stuff, and we're going to show some stuff later on too that is just awesome. It'll blow your mind, and they're good pieces. We're going to see what we can do to get it back. I don't know if we're in contact with him right now. Are we, Hunter? Do we have contact with him? Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, good. So we're going to get this fixed. But, everybody, let me just tell you why Colin is here and what we're doing here today. This is what it's all about. I want to bring, and I think the easiest way to do that is bring the friends that I really know and admire in our industry and bring them to you. And you can hear their stories. And you know what? It was so reassuring to me. Once I started meeting a lot of people in this business and I'd hear their stories, I'd think, you know what? I'm really not doing that badly. I think I'm making a lot of progress forward. It is not an easy business to get into. It's not an easy business to go with. When you heard Colin just say there, he said it could have been a firing for him if what came out of his mouth wasn't good. And I think that's something that we all know, that you can stick your foot in your mouth and it can cost you some money. Yet you take the chance, and you take the chance because you know your stuff and you want to show somebody that you're thinking about it and you know what's going on. And we're going to hear the rest of the story, but that's what Colin did, and I think that obviously look how it's paid off for him. Where are we at, Hunter?
His computer crashed, so he'll be back as soon as he can.
Okay. Well, it's the crashing computer on the show then. All right, great. Well, we're gonna do it. Let me ask you this: are we okay for a commercial break right now? Okay, we're gonna go to commercial. We're gonna come back, try to have Colin right back for you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Burnie's workshop is fantastic. Burnie's workshop is awesome. Burnie's workshop is insightful.
Burnie, in one word, passionate maybe. You can tell he really cares a lot.
Burnie is a badass.
He's a great teacher. He has great stories, and I would recommend this to anyone. Not only someone like me who's starting day one, but I feel that in any profession, as you sharpen your sword, it always gets sharper.
I think the best thing about this is the access to understanding how to run your business, how to actually be in this filmmaking industry and make money at it. Coming to this workshop, I think, is what actually gets you the tools to understand how to do that, how to get out there and sell yourself.
I thought that was really cool. I thought, he knows all the tricks in the book, and he knows how to show that to us and actually demonstrate it so we actually know what he's talking about.
I really like the hands-on experience. That's something that you don't find a lot. That's something you have to go on set a lot to just appreciate.
I know this is lighting seminar, but it's not only talk about lightings. He also share his business experience, personal experience, and guide us to what we should do, what kind of personality we should have in this business.
His stories, I think that kind of say everything, all in a few example stories that he gives out from time to time.
I would recommend this workshop to anybody who just spread into the industry, people who just don't know the swing of it. A lot of this stuff they don't teach you in film school.
I deal with a lot of freelancers every day, a lot of peers that I went to school with, a lot of professionals in the field, and they all need to take this class because it puts you on the next level, on the next playing field.
Burnie's a great guy. Burnie's really authentic. Like everything he learns, everything he teaches, the way he handles himself, the way he deals with other people, he's a one-of-a-kind guy. Someone I've never come across before in the industry, and someone I hope to emulate and hope that there are more people like him out there that can help.
Onset University is the place where you'll learn how to build your business. On our site, you'll find hours of information that you can use immediately. No matter where you're at in your career, you can use these strategies to grow your business. Also, I'll show you how to use social media to boost your business in a big way. What I teach are real-world, practical solutions to make you successful. Join our community at Onset University. Hey everybody, I think we may have our main man back, Colin Rich. Colin, can you hear me? Are you there?
Loud and clear. Sorry about that. My computer just went kaput.
You know, being the age I am, being the age you are, I remember when there was never a computer problem in the world because there was.
Oh
never a
yeah,
computer
I've never had a computer problem ever. Never, and never at a point where you actually don't, need a failure. That's just how it
Yes.
is. I think the computers can sense when you most need them, and that's just how that works.
That's when they're going to get their money's worth, right there. That's for sure, Colin. That's for sure. You know what? We were talking, if you hadn't gotten back, we were just going to go in and show city lights.
Cool.
And we'll still do the same thing. But tell us about City Lights. What was the concept there?
City Lights was it was kind of the culminating piece. I made something that's called the Trilogy of Lights, and that was basically a 3-part series that basically showcased LA and kind of was. I mean, for me, it's kind of like a rediscovery of the city of LA, and living abroad or living in New York and then coming back, it allowed me to kind of rediscover the city. So City Lights is kind of the culmination of that, and I feel like it's kind of a representation of what LA is to me, in kind of everything I went through at that time, rediscovering it, and I just tried to share some of the beauty that I got to see with the rest of the city. So that's kind of at least the simplified answer for that question.
The simplified version, yeah. So let's take a look at it, and then we'll come back on screen while it's playing, and we'll talk about what you had to do to get all this stuff.
Cool.
All right, let's go with it. Wow. Wow, Colin.
Thanks,
I'm
man.
telling you, I've seen it before, but just sitting here and watching it again, what an amazing piece, my friend. That is
Thank you.
just some really, really awesome work. And you know, what I saw this, yeah, hold on just a second, Colin. We did? Are we off? Okay, we're off the air right now. Go ahead. And what does it say? It asks you if it's okay, right? Okay, let me see the phone. Let me see the phone. We're off air right now. The
Okay.
music kicked us out. The music kicked us out. Did it kick us off? Are we done? Yeah. It did? Yeah. Okay, let's start up again. What's that? Yeah, yeah. Okay.
They didn't like the song.
Yeah. Are you ready to come back up, Travis? What's that? Are we live? Okay. Okay, go ahead, come back to me. Hey, everybody, so sorry about that. We're kicked off the old stream. You know, obviously anybody who's watching this had to migrate over again and do it. We got kicked off of Facebook because of the music on the video, which I don't quite understand. You have the
Which is
rights to the music, and we showed the video.
It's-
I don't know why it's a problem.
It's kind of funny too, because I actually put that part of the what City Lights was is that at the time I was contacted by Anthony Gonzalez, who's M83. He's the lead singer of it,
Right.
and the musician, and they were putting on a show at the Hollywood Bowl. So he contacts me a day before I'm leaving for a trip to Svalbard, which is like up in basically the North Pole. And they were asking me, they're like, "Hey, we really like Nightfall. Can you put together a video? Because we're going to be playing with the LA Philharmonic, and we want to have this at the Hollywood Bowl." So it's like it came from straight from him, and then Facebook is like, "Nope, can't have that on there." Weird. I don't know.
Wow, boy, I tell you, the music rights, there's a whole rights thing, social media that I don't think anybody's crossed the bridge on yet, you know, that we...
It's a little weird, yeah.
It's a little weird because I don't understand when you have a piece like yours, that is a piece of art, you know, that you put on there. Why is there a rights issue to that then? You know?
Well, there shouldn't be. I mean, the thing is that all that stuff has actually been cleared. The fact that there is, I think it's kind of the overall, Facebook doesn't necessarily work in a capacity where you have individuals who are checking things. They just have a broad computer system that if something lines up algorithmically, it's going to pull it. So that's how that works. I mean, they just don't have the bandwidth, you know, to be able to check all that stuff.
Right, right. No, nobody has that kind of bandwidth, you know,
Yeah.
1.6 billion people.
Yeah.
You're not going to be there everywhere, you know.
No, it's funny because that gets pulled really quickly, but they have like other videos that will be up there that are horrible, you know, like recently.
Things on there.
Yeah, and it's just good. Who knows?
Who knows? That's the easy one, but that's easy to pick out. That music is probably easy for an algorithm to pick
Exactly,
out.
yeah.
That's why it happens. Let me ask Travis a question here. Travis, do we have the piece? Can we pull the sound from it and then just have, you and I are going to talk in a little box down here while we all watch the piece again, and I want to ask you questions, and you can narrate maybe a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can do that. Okay, there we go. So you're opening now. One of the things I'd like to know is tell me each location that you were at and how long were you there getting these shots?
I mean, the first one was that's in East LA. Looking back, you know, one of the just great sunsets. This is further out towards Baldy, and so this is much deeper into the basement, but just a very clear night. This is, looking up at Mount Wilson over here. 2 shots from Mount Wilson. One's with a 600 mil. That's this shot. The previous one was a little bit wider, like probably a 200. This is like around like Griffith Park area. That looks like
see this right here,
Western
this
Ave.
scene with that's what really gets me. That brings it alive. I mean, I looked in LA in a whole different way after I saw this piece. The first
Yeah, there's like certain things and nuances like that I tried to line up with attributes in the songs, like the traffic. If you notice in the song, I mean, we don't have that playing right now, but there's kind of like a jingle there, and like I wanted to have that kind of reflective of kind of like the traffic that kind of looks like a ruby kind of shimmering. So it kind of makes sense in that capacity.
How about this shot here?
So these are also back like further out towards in the San Gabriel Mountains, and like that's kind of this cool like fog bank that comes over. Now this is actually up a little bit further outside, like up to 395. So technically it's not like LA, but I wanted to have this idea where we're getting outside of LA for the calming parts. And this is this is actually in Joshua Tree right here. This is Ryan.
I was going to say it looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just a moonrise right here. This is a moon strike. But kind of like more of like the nuance.
That's a moonrise.
Yeah, you can see the stars up at the top over here.
Wow.
So I wanted to have kind of the more subtle moments where we can reflect. Now this is actually over back towards Malibu right here, just watching a lot of this fog kind of pouring in, and those are planes coming out from LAX over here, just kind of flying over.
Okay.
This is kind of more in the gritty. This is like in the LA River right here.
Okay. This is
Looking
a beautiful
back.
shot. Watch.
Thank
this
you.
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. Tell me, how many days did you work on this total?
I mean, it's probably a whole year. I mean, at least, because I'd go out to a location, I'd shoot something, and it's funny, and like I feel like my wife would be able to speak about this better than I could. But like you kind of get into these like moments where like something isn't perfect, and I'm sure she'll like come in and I'm like, I have a shot, and she's like, that looks great, and I'm like, it doesn't look great. Like I can do it again, and I'll go out and keep doing it until it's perfect. And even then I look back and I'm like, it's not perfect, but I gotta move on, I'll be here forever. By the time I finish this thing, the whole skyline will be different. So
every really awesome artist is just like that too. They're never satisfied with the work.
No, it's kind of like an annoying aspect of it where it's just like, I want to do this again. Or you notice one particular thing that like isn't correct, and that's all you look at when you're looking at the shot. Everybody else would be looking at something awesome, what they should be looking at, but I'm looking at like in the corner. I'm like, it looks like there's a little dust on the lens or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. And you know what? That's one thing I think most people don't understand about the artist. They don't live in a life of, look what I've created. Look at the great work I've done. Look at all this. They're sitting there hating themselves. 3/4 of the things that they see going, I should have done that better. I should have handled it differently. I should have done this, but it's the truth. There's no life of gratification as the artist. You're giving that to someone else,
Yeah, it's kind of like the mood. Like you don't really create it for other people. Like, this whole project, you have to have, a tenacity and kind of an energy just to see yourself through it. Because if I was to start out like on the first video that I put together, and I look back on that footage, and it's like, for me, it was like kind of the first foray into that.
Right.
That's kind of more, I'll look at that and be like, wow, like I feel like it was perfect for that time. I look back at it now and I'm like, it looks like garbage to me. Like I feel like I've grown so much as a shooter. And even now when I look at some of like even city lights, I'm like, I could have done that a lot better. But it's kind of that nagging feeling that like at least kind of keeps pushing you forward and into wanting to learn new things. So
it's going to make the next project better. That's the bottom line. Yeah,
exactly.
Let me ask you this. Number one, who is Scott Johnson you dedicated?
Scott, my uncle. He at the time, he was very sick, and I'd kind of I looked at it kind of like a motivation. I'd go out and shoot, and I remember when I'd see him, I'd be like, I'm working on this, and I'd show him like some of the shots. He's like, that's awesome, and I always kind of liked the certain aspects of while I was working. There's shots that are up at Mount Wilson. I remember it was after I'd see him, and he was in Pasadena, and I'd go right up, Angeles Crest afterwards. And for me, it's kind of like it was a nice, like, kind of like refreshing kind of angle on things, because at the time I was, it's very somber. But I kind of like the fact that when I look at the shots, I can look down and I know he's in there. He's in those shots somewhere. Like, and it's kind of like I tried to keep like a little bit of like a memorial piece for him and everything. So
that's very nice.
He was an awesome uncle. Good guy.
Yeah. Well, he probably really loved you as a nephew. I'm sure. Like, look at that kid go.
He's a good dude for sure.
Fix my phone.
That's the one thing I can't do. These things are complex now.
That's good. I feel better now, Colin. Thank you. Also, we had a question in here because we were all really struck by it. The shot of your ramping down or tracking down that little roadway looking at PCH. How did you track that? How did you do that? And also the one going into the Ferris wheel in Santa Monica. How did you just walk with it? Yeah, that right there. Yeah. So
that's basically a hyperlapse. If you noticed in these shots, I mean, you could essentially, like this sideways motion right there, you could essentially do that on a dolly, but I think that one where I went parallel, that was just like on top of a rooftop of a parking structure. The idea is, I mean, essentially you're taking a shot and then you're moving a little bit, but you're keeping your camera focused on a central object, and you want to kind of line that up as much as possible in your camera, and you kind of scroll through it. You're like, oh, it looks kind of like an animation, and then in post, I'll bring it into like After Effects, and I'll end up stabilizing that image, and so you get these elongated movements that are would otherwise be almost impossible to do on a dolly system unless you're like on a train track or something. But that's what those shots are, and it's funny. Those are like the most painful shots to do because you start and you're like, okay, at the end of the night, you're like, all right, my back is killing me at this point. That's when I'm like, I'm getting too old for this stuff, man. It's like you start feeling it, but they're very cool, and it's funny because they like time lapse is interesting. I know I mentioned this earlier when we were talking, but it's almost become like ubiquitous to the sense that like it's a lot more prevalent. And that's a cool thing, it's interesting that, people are using a lot more often. I remember like the first shows, they were really kind of focusing on it and doing a good job, or like Breaking Bad. They'd have these like day to night transitions and stuff that would just, they oriented sound design into it, and it was very cool. And then like you have like a company like Microsoft, they came out with an app it's like a hyperlapse app. So you can walk around. You look like almost as weird as we would look like if we're moving a bigger camera, but you're just, doing this with your phone. I guess people just do that anyways because people always have their phone in their face. Right. But they're just kind of walking around. They're making hyperlapses. But I feel like once you get to that point where like a company like Microsoft are making these apps for it, you're like, okay, they like time to move on to the next thing. So
yeah, right. Well, you were one of the founding fathers. That's what made the popularity. I know, because they saw your work and they tried to emulate it. Is essentially what's going on. So, that is really, really, really great stuff. How many days did that take you to do it? Let's divide it between shooting days and editing. Any guess?
So, I mean, I edit while I was going. So essentially, part of that structuring of shots and finding out what works and what doesn't, or shots that you're not satisfied with. I mean, it's part of like the year of production for it. And that's, I mean, it wouldn't take a year to put something like this together. I would never tell my clients that because they would be like, what? We don't have a year. We have like a month, but it's, editing, I have the luxury of when you're doing something like this, I can build my timeline. And I have that pacing put together, and so I'd say in all, like, I mean, essentially it took about a year. And actually, at the very beginning of that of City Lights, it was actually had a completely different song to it, in that I'd been cutting it to. And then when I got the go ahead from M83 to cut together something for the Hollywood Bowl, part of it was like, it's like, oh, thanks, that's awesome, you guys rock, but I'm also going to use this for my video. And they're like, cool, like, that's fine, like, that's cool. So that was one of those moments where I'm like, thank God, like, everything lined up how it did. because it just seemed like perfect for it, you know. So
No,
I'm glad it worked out.
Great piece. Let's, we have another piece here. What have we got up, Travis? LA Lights. LA Lights. Tell us
Oh, the
about
first
LA
one.
Lights.
So LA Light was like the first. That was the first time lapse video I'd really put together, and so this is the beginning of the trilogy of Light. This was kind of just like when I first came back, and it's funny. Like at the end, you're going to see like another name. That's actually it was actually done for my grandmother, who again was sick. It was like such a weird time. But the whole video was kind of like these nights I just go out and start shooting, and I started shooting time lapse around LA. I had some friends who were shooting around LA at the time and kind of experimenting with this stuff, and I just kept going out and shooting and kind of putting these pieces together, trying to figure out, oh, hey, I can make a short. I could kind of tell a story of what LA is. So I put that together, and yeah, that's what LA Light was. So.
Okay, great. Let's take a look. I better turn the sound off this time. We don't want to have to start the show over again. But yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Cool.
Absolutely awesome, Colin.
It's interesting watching it without sound. It's a whole other.
The same thing.
I wanted to start humming and drumming to it or something and making my own
know
track.
what, though? It is so good, though, a lot of times, and this is a mistake I make, whenever I turn the sound off and I watch something, I watch it in a whole different way. I pay much closer to the images, instead of marrying that thing. I'll tell you what, we've got to go to a quick commercial break, and then what we're going to do is come back. You and I will go through that one again, just like we did the last one.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, be right back. Hi, I'm Burnie. I own Burnie's Grip and Lighting, San Diego Grip and Lighting, and Los Angeles Grip and Lighting. We pride ourselves on not only renting you the best equipment, but also giving you the best crews. And one of our core values here at Burnie's Grip and Lighting is that we give you the highest production value in the world. And remember, people used to say national, local. No, we present world-class production value on every set. We also know budgets are very tight these days, and you've got 10 hours to get what you need in the can. We move ahead, we move fast, and we know what you need. When you rent from Burnie's Grip and Lighting, you have a partner on your production for that day that is making sure you are well taken care of. So anytime you're in Southern California, give us a call at 714-609-3545, and we'll take very good care of you. See you on set. Hi, this is Burnie, owner of Burnie's Grip and Lighting, and I'm also the manager here at Dot Lot Stages. Dot Lot Stages I've been shooting at for over the last 10 years. We have two stages. We have a 20 by 23 foot full body green screen room. We also have what's behind me, which is a 30 by 40 foot white cyc stage. It's lit by 6 2K space lights. All of the lighting for the green screen and white cyc comes pre-lit. Now, the price for the stage is $1,000 for 11 hours, and that comes with a stage manager and 600 amps of power. Now, how I'm going to get the word out, and this is for my friends who've used Burnie's Grip and Lighting before and my Facebook friends, is that if you rent the stage and you rent my 3-ton stage package, which includes a full tungsten package with chimera, all the distribution, all of the grip and stands, and everything else you need, I will give you the stage at half price. So what that means is you'll get the stage and the grip and lighting package for $1,100. That's only $100 more than the stage would have cost itself. It's a great deal, and I'm doing this because I want to keep my stage working and keep it busy. So give me a call at 714-609-3545. That's 714-609-3545. I'll see you on set. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here with Colin Rich, and we just saw LA lights. Is that correct? Oh, I can't hear Colin. Are you there, Colin?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, got you now. Got you now. Yeah. So that was LA Lights. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you did that, I think, released that around 2011?
2010. Yeah.
2010. Okay.
It's funny. It's like one of those things when you look back at, you're like, wow, the camera equipment, everything's changed so much since then. You know, leaps and bounds.
You know, that brings up a good point. What equipment do you use? And I know I think you've had a change recently, but tell us what kind of equipment you use.
Well, I mean, for the most part, with like motion control gear, I've been using a lot of Kessler's gear. They have some really great stuff. The CineDrive system is very good for multi-axis lens control. I've had the ability to use that on films, commercials, stuff that requires a little bit more movement and control. You have the ability to keyframe a lot better with that stuff. As far as camera equipment is concerned, I've been using, I actually moved from Canon to Sony and then kind of back to Canon again. So right now I'm using heavily 1D, actually this is the 5D Mark IV. The lenses I've been using are the Zeiss Otis series. And I'm hoping they come out, right now they have 3 in the series. I got like a 28, a 55, and an 85 just for that series. And then I have some of the Sigma Art lenses that are very nice. There's also some Canon lenses that I've been using, since the get-go, 16 to 35. So it's been kind of interesting because we've had this movement for, I guess Canon kind of set the pace with their DSLRs. And then as you move forward, you have Sony coming out, and they've really been pushing the R&D when it's been coming to the sensitivity of the camera's ISO. you had cameras like the A7S and the A7R2 and the A7S2, which are just like awesome platforms, but they're very much like software oriented. So you have cameras that have the amazing ability to really utilize a lot of latitude and sensitivity, but they're not as robust as a Canon camera that's going to be weather sealed. I guess Sony has some new cameras coming out. They have the A9, which I heard eventually was actually a weather sealed body. So we're going to check some of that stuff out and see how it fares. But it's kind of interesting. I'm glad these aren't like they're expensive, but they're not like going out and spending $60,000 on a red camera. Expensive. So it's a little bit more forgiving in that realm. So in that sense, it's kind of nice, but there has been such a development in the last 5 years how far they've moved forward. So.
Right. No. I was. Do people give you equipment to try?
Yeah, I've had stuff coming in initially from. Oh man, I mean, I think the first piece of gear that came in was through right after LA Light. It had cameras coming in. I've had like testing bodies before, which are always funny because it's like you have a lot of buttons on it that aren't labeled. And when say Canon comes out with like a new body, you're like, this is kind of like the old one, except the button that I'm so used to pressing is now over here, and so I keep hitting the wrong button on it. But you figure it out. Motion control stuff. Eric Kessler's been awesome as far as being responsive. I mean, as a company, they're awesome. They're always listening. They're always willing to build upon their gear, and I've been using that since. I think 2010 I had like the Revolution head, and that was like an analog motion control system. And then in between that, I had the Matthews had a great slider. It was a system that had basically a counterbalance to it. And I shot most of like Nightfall on that system. It was a great system. Yeah, and it was just really heavy. So like, I'd have my workout. I didn't have to go to the gym in between that. It's just like lugging that thing around. And then I ended up going back with the Kessler stuff just because they had the versatility and the ability to use like, up to 5-axis control. So I'm controlling, I have like a fizz kit with it, and you have, larger setups where you can have, basically building track and you're adding on top of that. So, yeah, it's been cool. I mean, it's great to be able to have some of these products and test them out. You really test them. It's not like you take it out there and you're like, all right, well, let's see what this thing can do. I need to test it in a real world environment.
It's real world. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. It doesn't get much more real than that when you're hauling it around. And you don't have the time to kind of like, be
Not
gentle
your
with it.
locations. It's not like
No.
rides in the front seat. You know what I mean?
No,
It's gonna get there and it's gonna
it
go
like
on a
starts gentle and then afterwards it's like just throw it in the car and let's get out of here.
Oh yeah,
I'm tired.
I know that one. I know
Yeah.
that one too. That's awesome. Now, I think what I'd like to do here is let's play the third piece that we have, and then
Sure.
we'll go back through and talk that one through. Unless there's something you want to show us on the last piece that we did.
Oh no, that's cool. We can.
Okay,
So what are we playing now? Do you know or?
What is it? Nightfall.
Oh, cool. So this is the second in the
In
series.
the trilogy. Did we show
Yeah.
the trilogy? Did we show the trilogy or?
So yeah, we started at the last one. Then we were like, City Lights was the last one, and then we're kind of
showed the
going
first one.
forward. Yeah. So you see the kind of the progression with it. Yeah.
In pure Applebox form, we
Yeah.
want all of them in there, but just not in the right order. That's all.
That's for the editor, man. He'll put that together.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not an editor. I'm a gaffer. Okay, let's take a look at it. Well, I'm going to repeat myself for the third time. Wow. You know, I mean, just phenomenal piece. I don't know if Colin is with us right now. I'm kind of getting the idea maybe he froze up on the other end. Okay, and we'll get him back. But you can see what he's done here. And you know, we didn't play him in the right order. We played the most recent first, and then the second one we played was the first, and now we're on the second one, which is the last one we're seeing here. But if you go back and watch the show, you can definitely, I think, see that progression or arch in probably style, some things that he likes to do, maybe new technology that came out that was so amazing. It's so good. And you know, when you're working with an artist like this, I mean, this is somebody who, maybe there's a lot of people that thought, oh, it'd be cool to do a time lapse here, a time lapse there. You can tell with this material and this type of work, this is something that Colin envisioned, and he made it so good, and he figured all those ancillary parts out, not just knowing the technology, how to get it, but how to get it and put it together and make it speak to you, truly make it speak to you so you feel and you emote. And I come back to this all the time. I'm surprised sometimes how many people don't understand this in our industry. But media is emotion. It is nothing else. It is not intellect. You have to move people emotionally in order for your project or your message to work. It doesn't work on an intellectual level. And what he's done here with this is you definitely feel like you love the city. You definitely feel like you're part of this city. It's huge, it's encompassing, and somehow he brings it into terms that you can understand. So I think we're still waiting for Colin to get back on, but you know, I'd just like to speak to you too. If you're somebody who thinks, oh, I should do this project, but I'm trying to make money, I'm trying to be over here, I'm trying to get my career, I want to work more, I want to do this, I want to do that. You know, sometimes the quickest path to the end of the road is by taking a circle around. Maybe you cut through the woods. Maybe you don't do something that you're supposed to. Maybe it's something that takes a chance. But in the end, you win. And you win two ways, actually. If the project's a huge success and you're a hero, hey, that's great. If it fails and you're not, I think we got Colin back with us here. All
Sorry
right,
about
yeah,
that.
he's back. Oh, yeah, you went away. Technology again. It's that damn technology.
It's wonderful, you know, just having no issues all the time, you know.
I
love
tell
it.
you know, yet we're over here. Here's the irony of it. Here's the irony. We're over here. We put this thing together pretty simply. And I'm not going to say it's bulletproof because it is not. But you know what I mean? We have held our breath so many times till 2 o'clock. And it's always worked. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that. Beautiful piece, Colin. I was so blown away by that. That's great. We're starting to run out of time. Maybe we'll just take another quick run through the piece there.
Sure.
And Colin, you just tell us anything you want. I'm not going to ask you questions. Just narrate for us through where you were at, what you did, what you're thinking, what you think of it, all that stuff.
Okay, cool.
All right, here we go.
Nightfall, it had a lot more energy, a lot more of like a build up to it. The idea was to kind of think about it as like breathing. You know, there's moments when you're listening to this as well, and you're seeing the imagery. You have kind of these more languorous shots. We're holding on this stuff, and you have time to kind of reflect on it. And I always thought it was a good sense to hold on something long enough, but not long enough to bore somebody. Long enough that it's interesting and you see what's happening, but short enough that somebody wants to see it, they can watch it again. So that was kind of like one of the mentalities behind it. But if you notice, it has these points where it's kind of like you're breathing in and then you just release. And then the idea was that we're having a tour of light through the city. So in order to kind of cover all angles, I tried to match up as much stuff with not only camera movement, but the amount of energy that you're seeing on screen. You know, so shots kind of like relay on top of shots. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, I was shooting, at nightfall. So it's kind of the namesake of the piece, but the idea, and I still feel, And I know that a lot of cinematographers feel the same way, that, this is the most beautiful time to be shooting is, obviously from golden hour, but that extended on, through nightfall and then also through daybreak, where you'd be able to have these moments where you really see a transfer of energy. And so the idea was like, you have these shots where we're kind of holding through the day, and then, having the shadows kind of moving, and then we're just right back into night. And that's fun, man. Yeah. It was so cool. Like, going around and shooting this stuff. I remember that building up there that I was on the top of. I was up there, and we were getting attacked by peregrine falcons.
Falcon attack.
Yeah, falcon. We first showed up, and and I remember looking around, and there was like a bunch of, those green parrots that fly around here. They're from like Busch Gardens back in the day. Mm-hmm. Well, this whole like rooftop was like filled with like, the carcasses of all these like green parrots. I'm like, oh man, this is weird. And then, after it always has to happen every time you set the camera up. That's like when the weird stuff happens. And so it's set up the camera, and we're doing like a shadow, kind of like a day to night transition. So you're letting it kind of roll for a while. Everything has to be perfect and set up. And I just see this like shadow like fly by me. And I'm like, what the hell was that? And I like look over my camera system. I'm like, do you see what that was? He's like, I think it's a bird. And then we look up, and there are these two peregrine falcons that are just circling us. And they're nesting over there, so they're really aggressive. They're nesting over at the Bonaventure, and they're just dive bombing us the whole time. And I ended up going back for the next day, and I had this big sombrero on to kind of protect my head. I know they're gonna like rip my face off. They're trying to, protect their babies or whatever. But I love it. I was like, oh, we'll talk about all the shots. It goes by so quickly. I end up talking about like getting attacked by birds or something.
Oh my gosh, that is. So
you never know.
awesome.
You never know what's gonna happen. So
no, you never know. It's production. It's so many questions, of course, and this is always what happens to me. The first time I did this, I thought, how am I going to fill up an hour? Now I'm wondering, why don't I have 2 hours to do this? Because I never get all the questions asked. We're just about out of time. How do people get a hold of Colin Rich?
One of the best ways is just through my website. I have a contact page on there. It's info at deer-dog.com. But if they can go to my website, it's www.deer as in the animal-dog.com. And it's got a lot of my works up there as well. But that's the best way to contact me, I think. Yeah.
Okay. How far out? Just a quick question before we end. How far out do you usually book? Do you have like several months booked out right now, or does it work like that?
So, right now I'm concentrating on a project for LA 2024. It's going to be like the announcement for the Olympics. So something like that will dominate the majority of my time. That's going to be like, right now it's a months-long project.
Yeah.
But for booking, it depends. It's kind of like the same thing with, how this world works in production. You could have months where it's like, oh, did I say something to somebody? Like what? Like what happened? Then all at once it like comes in, and you're like, why does it have to work like that?
But
yeah, it's just weird like that.
I'm going through that right now. I'm going through that right now.
Trust me, you didn't say anything. It's just how it is. It's like this like weird. And the one thing I've always recognized is that it's never the same every year. It kind of shifts a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, but like it's just that's the nature of it. We love it, we hate it at the same time.
We love it, we hate it. Boy, isn't that the truth, Colin? I just want to thank you very much, right from my heart. Thank you so much for being on today, my friend. It was the best thing I could think of. I'm so glad you made the time for us. I'm so glad you showed your stuff. And, we will talk soon. I would like to do maybe a workshop, a class down here, and certainly have you on again. There's plenty more to talk about. So.
I have a lot more stories that we could go through. And Burnie, like you're the man. Like ever since I remember working with you on that first job, like way back in the day, and I was like, who is this guy over here? This guy knows his stuff. And I just remember that. And I remember on the job we did with KTLA, I'm like, I gotta get Burnie out here. This is like, you've always been like not only like one of the easiest people to work with, but the most knowledgeable and the nicest person I've worked with. It's just thank you for having me on here.
Oh,
And I
Colin,
definitely look
thank
forward
you.
to
That's so kind. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
workshops, man. Anything to help you out. I mean, and also, a lot of people have questions about, workflows and stuff when it comes down to this stuff. So,
Yeah.
maybe we could figure something out like that.
That sounds awesome, dude. Thank you so much, Colin. Love your stuff. Love you, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Bernie.
Have a good one, my friend. All right.
Bye.
Okay. And everybody, goodbye from Applebox. See you next week. Cut. That's a wrap. Did I come over hot when I said that? Okay. Colin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hey, Bernie, thanks, man.